up, Alexa. Turn the alarm off. You got bad morning breath. What day is it? Why is the alarm going on? Oh, Texas Chainsaw Massacre today. Oh, I gotta get ready for that. Oh. Can't believe it. Gotta go see that. What? It's on Netflix.
Hello! Welcome to Horror Addicts Live. Breaking stuff. First off, the unusual question. Can you all hear and see us okay? And yeah, Christian, we are live, dude. So, Danny.
I filmed that opening. We were gonna do a Let's Go See. I actually filmed a review where I did for a Let's Go See, but with the Oscars and everything, I just never had time to make it. But I kind of wanted to still use the opening, so there you go. That was from February 18th or whatever.
Oh, I'm Gory Movie.
I'm Danny Nightmare.
And we're Horror Addicts. And today we're reviewing Texas Chainsaw Massacre, not the one from the 70s, not the 3D remake, but the one that came out this year, 2022, on Netflix.
The Saw's family. Unfortunately, this movie really isn't family, though.
It really isn't. But first, maybe we should break down the plot.
Yeah, okay. So, you got a bunch of people gonna move into Leatherface's neck of the woods, abandoned town, and they're gonna gentrify it and buy up all the stuff. There is a cool theater. That's one thing I'd be interested in. And, well, there's a property dispute, and then Leatherface basically does not like his new neighbors.
So first off, let's talk about maybe some of the Easter eggs in this before we get into like what we like and dislike. What do you think?
Easter eggs?
Or just things we liked, which I guess falls into Easter eggs.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to mention is John Larroquette, who narrated the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, does the narration at the beginning of this, and it has a pretty great opening. You've got the narration, and then there's like this, like true Hollywood story kind of documentary on, and so it's like, all right, this looks kind of cool.
Yeah, I like the narration and him coming back. I believe David Blue Garcias directed it, and I think the only thing else he ever did was horror is like Bloodfest or Blood. He did the cinematography for that, so he's kind of new. And I think this is his second movie.
It's got a pretty good cast. It's got Elsie Fisher, which I haven't seen it, but I know a lot of people loved 8th Grade, which she was in. She was in something else recently too that I can't think of. I don't know Mark Burnham from anything, but he is a terrific Leatherface. The way he moves, you can tell that he really studied particularly like Gunnar Hansen's movements in the first movie.
Yeah.
Since he moves very differently than the other Leatherfaces. So I feel like Mark Burnham really put a lot of thought and care into his performance, and he is intimidating while still showing the emotion of the character. Other notable person I would mention is Alwyn Fuere, who a lot of us know from Mandy.
Yeah, she was the evil cult mistress.
And I think she's great. I would have loved, instead of having Pearl played by a younger actress in X, I think she would have been great. But, it is what it is. Cheese whiz.
But she plays Sally in this, and I don't know.
We're going to get into that.
We'll get into that later. But...
And my favorite that I was excited to see on the cast list is Alice Krieger, who I love her. A lot of you might remember her as the head of the Borg in Star Trek, but I love her from Sleepwalker. She was also the witch in Gretel and Hansel. She's just terrific. She is such a great actress, and she's so good in horror. I adore her.
Basically, Leatherface's caretaker.
So yeah, she's essentially how this ties into the other movies is Leatherface after it negates all the sequels. So after their family was apparently, I guess, arrested or killed or whatever at the end of the first one, Leatherface was taken in by this woman who raised him as kind of a child among other orphans. And she's kept him pretty sedate. I mean, not medically, but she's calmed him down enough that there haven't been any other murders.
That we know of, anyways. And it's very implied that he's led a pretty peaceful life.
And we all know Leatherface is loyal. So he has a new mom now and she's taking care of him. But that all goes wrong when these young Gen Z kids come into town and they believe that they have bought up all the property. And so they go into Alice Krieger's house and they're like, yeah, you need to get the fuck out. And she's like, yeah, this is my home. You know, I live here. This is just a misunderstanding. Let me get the paperwork. And, you know, she says the wrong thing to the wrong people and they decide to call the police and have her escorted out.
Yeah, they want her flag gone.
She has a Confederate flag. And, you know, she says some stuff that's really not that great to, you know, the character that is of color. So, yeah, they basically have her pegged as some Southern, you know, racist type woman. She doesn't seem, like, hateful. She just seems like
outdated.
She seems outdated.
Very.
Yeah, like she even tries to tell him that she's raised lots of, you know, children of color and stuff. You know, she's not hateful, but obviously her views and stuff are extremely outdated. So he's just got her pegged as like some crazy racist lady that we just need to get rid of. And as the conversation goes on, our lead character starts to realize that, you know, she's not in great health. The woman starts to, you know, have trouble breathing. And she doesn't even make it to the hospital.
Yeah, when the cops come to escort her out, she starts to have problems. They get her in an ambulance. Leatherface, no one knows him as Leatherface at this point, but jumps into the ambulance with her. And even, I believe, Dante's girlfriend, one of the girls that are with Dante. God, I'm terrible at remembering their names. So there's Melody, who, she's there with her sister Lila. And then there's Dante, and he sends his girlfriend Ruth along. Yeah. So Ruth goes along with them. Before they even get there, though, Melody, like, starts problems with the locals. Like, there's a guy driving a truck. He's got a gun on his waist.
And I liked that guy. Like, I was on his side, 100%.
She starts making these loud comments about how his dick must be so tiny and stuff. Like, for no reason. She was, like, starting a fight with this guy. And
yeah, and, you know, it's not really anything against the movie. It's against the character. And I will say, largely... I will just come out and say the protagonists in this movie are extremely unlikable. I liked some of the locals. You know, I liked Leatherface in this. I liked the guy with the truck. But Melody, Lila's okay.
Yeah,
but
Lila's fine.
Melody and Dante, like, they just come there and they kind of feel like those kind of people you see on social media who are just looking for a fight.
And very self-entitled.
Very entitled. They are extremely entitled. They go in there believing that they can just walk in and make it their own, and they're not thinking about the people who are already there and questioning whether or not they have a place to go.
I think, like, their morals are in the right place, but the way they go about them is completely
Yeah,
wrong.
it's like they have, I guess, maybe their heart in the right place,
yeah, like
but
ideas,
when you break down their ideas about trying to do better by people, it's like, well, there's people right in front of you, and you're not doing very well by them. You want to do right by the people that you care about. You know, pretty young people.
Melody's very, like, I think, aggressive because her little sister, Lila, survived a school shooting, and that's why she hates guns and all that stuff. She really pushes that agenda on anybody she needs to.
It's almost kind of like ethnocentric in a way, though, because people live differently in the South than they do in northern areas. And you can't just go down to the South and expect them to live the way you live. It is a different culture down there entirely. So, you know, I'm not a gun person, but I would never go down to the South and start telling people to put their guns away. Like, that's not my place.
Especially some guy who's just pumping gas, minding his own business. In fact, they actually end up, like, really embarrassed because they're doing business with this guy.
Yeah.
And Lila's actually, like, kind of embarrassed by her sister's behavior, and she made it very clear that she's not really wants to be a part of any of this.
And it's not like the guy was pointing a gun at them. He just happens to have a gun on him, which, you know, again, I live in a place where I don't need to have a gun. You know, there's nothing dangerous around me. I don't have to protect myself, but there are places where, for whatever reasons, you got Leatherface living in your town. Maybe you live near bears. You might need a gun.
Yeah, so that's just pretty much how it starts. And, well, like I said, his caretaker, her health kind of goes bad, and well, that pisses off Leatherface, and there you've got a whole town of these what are
Gen Zers.
Gen Zers, yeah. And Leatherface is just gonna start taking them out. That's pretty much what we're gonna tell you.
You
right
could
there,
really
with
get
plot-wise.
metaphorical with this and just say it comes down to, I guess, what, boomers versus Generation Z.
That's one of my problems with the movie. Like, I feel like the tone and the message of like which side the movie's on is very confusing.
It is a little confusing.
But oh well. I mean, if you just
But
take all the political aspects out of it and just want to see a slasher film, it is enjoyable as a slasher film.
I don't honestly don't know if the movie wants you to take a side.
Yeah.
I think the movie wants you to say the situation is fucked. Like, yes, maybe some of the older generations need to get with the times. Some of that shit's outdated, you know? On the other hand, I think it's trying to say that, you know, maybe we don't need to make every single thing into a fight and we can be a little more understanding, particularly of older generations.
Maybe the younger generation should have some respect, like as well. Like I don't know. I
Yes,
think the movie
respecting
wants.
your elders, which I mean, our generation, we're millennials.
Mhm.
Our generation, we were raised respect your elders, you know, and we're our generation. It's always kind of like, oh, your grandma might say something that's kind of outdated or something, but it's like that's your grandmother, so you just kind of let it go. It's not your place to correct her or teach her because she's been alive a lot longer than you. But you know, in this movie, this group of Generation Z people, they don't feel that way at all.
Yeah, like I said, the movie is called Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I think it literally wants you to be torn. Like
I do. I don't think it's trying to say that any one side is right. Though I will say the protagonists, the young people in this, were extremely annoying. I know plenty of Gen Z people who are lovely people, and these people are just the extreme. They're almost a caricature of, I guess, what people don't like about Gen Z or even millennials for that matter. So I don't know if it was very, and I also know plenty of boomers who are not like this. So I don't know if it's the best representation of those, but I do feel like it's over dramatized to kind of let you see some of the problems in these, you know, inherent in these conflicts.
movie needs conflict.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wasn't old enough to see the original in theaters and to know really what the political thoughts is by the crowd and the audience. Because I mean, you had Gen X, like, and a bunch of hippies, like, kind of feeling a little entitled as they
Hippies
walk.
are boomers.
Okay, well, boomer hippies. But anyways, they were walking around and you know feeling entitled, kind of where they went into people's houses without really any care. I don't think they had an agenda to push on people. They just, showed up where they weren't needing to be showed up, and thought they were okay with that. So, and I know the first one does have like some issues with technology coming in and taking away jobs and stuff. So there is political stuff there too. I mean, this movie's not any real different from the first one in those type of things. It's just a different way.
I do feel like the original movie was a lot more subtle about it.
Oh, yeah.
This movie,
At least to me.
it takes precedence over the story.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is where a lot of people who don't like this movie are coming from.
Yeah. Probably.
If it's okay to go ahead and say it now, I liked this movie.
I like it.
I thought this movie was a lot of fun in a slasher way, but that's not saying I think it's perfect. There's a lot of things I don't like about this movie. So I am 100% understanding of the people who really hated this one because there are some cringy ass shit in here. Though, in fairness, the one scene that gets criticized the most for being cringe, it's cringe in the way it's supposed to be. The scene where Leatherface goes onto a bus and they film him with their phones and like, you're going to get canceled. Yeah, it's supposed to be cringe because that's kind of a cringe thing to say to somebody and people say it all the time, and it's just kind of like, yeah, that might work if you're in, I guess, in a situation where somebody cares, but Leatherface gives zero shits.
I can understand why people don't like that dialogue because sometimes we watch movies to escape reality and that dialogue is sadly all over the internet and just kind of people say a lot. So I can understand why people don't like that as much, but at the same time, I feel like the movie was trying to, this is supposed to be a cringe thing.
Do you want to get into what we like about it?
I liked the gore.
It is gory AF. Like, it is really gory, and the practical effects, and they need a little bit of CGI, but it's not too
much.
It doesn't draw attention to itself. But yeah, there's some pretty epic kills in here. Pretty good suspense scenes.
I think it had some pretty good cinematography too.
Yeah, the cinematography was really good in this.
Yeah. And the best way to eat a fruit roll up, apparently. But no, the gore, there's a little bit at the end. I think the gore might be just a little too over the top for my liking, just because of how unrealistic certain things can be with that. But other than that, I really did enjoy it.
I
for the
honestly
most part.
thought the tone was pretty good throughout. Like, I felt like, yeah, there were parts where were kind of cringy because the characters are cringy.
Mhm.
They're entitled young people who are in way over their heads.
And let's not
You know,
forget
and
Franklin was very cringy in the first
honestly,
movie.
I
So
think the movie's trying to say something about that. Like, it's easy to be entitled when life is easier. Our grandparents had much harder lives than us. It was harder to get food, it was harder to get work, it was harder to get a lot of things. They suffered a lot in ways that modern generations don't. I'm not saying that modern generations don't. We all have our battles to fight, but it's a different kind of battle. And so they don't understand like cultures where people do have to carry around guns or where the climate is a bit different. So a lot of it, I thought the tone was pretty spot on until the very end. The final sting kill before the credits. Won't get into that right now. We'll get into spoilers in a bit, but I thought like, okay, you kind of overshot your load a little bit.
I felt like it kind of was going there just with the final battle in general. But as Movie Massacre said, it would have been cool if Chop Top in it. That's one thing I felt was really missing: the family.
Okay, so that is, I have two big grievances with this movie. And the biggest one is it's not Texas Chainsaw Massacre without the family. Leatherface is a part of the family. He's a memorable part of the family. But like in the first one, the hitchhiker, I felt like is an important part of it. And Dragon is an important part of it. And honestly, they're the more
Grandpa.
violent.
Grandpa.
They're all a lot more violent than Leatherface. Leatherface is basically a dog.
I get that Grandpa would be way too old at this point because Leatherface himself is geriatric, so which is kind of weird. But doesn't mean Chop Top couldn't have been in it.
Well, what I was trying to say was Leatherface is basically a dog. He'll
Yeah.
protect his home if there's intruders, and he will sick on anybody that he's told to go after.
Exactly.
So without that family, there's not a whole lot for him. Now, they do as good a job as they can, but yeah, it's the family that I think is a lot more scary than Leatherface. I would rather go against Leatherface than someone like Chop Top or the Hitchhiker, Nubbins. I would rather go against one of them because, or rather go against Leatherface because Leatherface, honestly, he doesn't have that bloodthirst that they have. Like they seriously just want to kill people.
Well, in this movie, he does have the bloodthirst, but we're going from
No, in this movie, it's revenge.
Well, yeah,
They killed his mom.
but he's gonna
It's
take
classic Leatherface.
take out a whole town.
They invaded his home turf and they killed his mom. He's got motive.
Yeah.
Whereas Nubbins would do it just because they're
Oh, yeah,
assholes.
that's true.
You know, Dragon would do it because they're assholes and to make chili. And Grandpa would do it because it's fun.
I'm just saying, once he has that revenge, there is a bloodthirst because he wants everyone nearby to die.
I'm just saying he has motive.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I didn't like that aspect of it. I do think the family is important. And I really don't like how some movies have tried to make Leatherface into a slasher icon in a way that like Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger have, because he's not. That movie came out before slashers were an established genre. It wasn't really established in the mainstream until Halloween. Yes, there were proto slashers before then, but that's the movie that cemented it as a mainstream subgenre of horror. And I feel like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, with the introduction of part 3, Leatherface, they were like, well, we can get on this train. We can do sequels too. What is the most visually like memorable character who wears a mask? It's Leatherface. But I think that was it's kind of a misstep, even though in Leatherface it actually is about a family. But especially with some of the more recent ones, they're really focusing more on Leatherface and getting away from the family. I'm not really happy with that direction.
I like the family aspect of most of the Texas Chainsaw Massacres, especially the original. So I felt that was really missing here. I mean, I get it. They have a plot and they have a storyline and it works for what it works. But I prefer when there's a family involved.
The family also adds something that we cannot get from our protagonist. Now, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre actually found a way around that because they did have stuff with the mom, the grandma, you know, and they did have the young girl realize that she's his cousin. But when you have the family, they understand Leatherface in a way that somebody who comes across him and sees a guy in a mask with a chainsaw is not going to understand. They've grown up with him. They understand who he is as a person. And since he doesn't speak, it does help to have those other characters to see him interact with, to understand that character better.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Caroline Williams, I think she would have been great. There's a few people they could have brought in for this that they sadly didn't. Bill Moseley would have been fine. I just think a little more that would have been
The other thing I really didn't like, and I feel it's really disrespectful, and it almost made me lower my rating. It rubbed me the wrong way that much, but at the end of the day, I was like, I had a good time watching this. I'd watch it again. It was stupid fun. But it did rub me the wrong way that they brought back Sally Hardesty. I
good.
do not think you can compare that to Halloween 2018 bringing back Laurie Strode or any of the movies that have brought back Laurie Strode. One, because she's not played by Marilyn Burns. Marilyn Burns has passed away. So Marilyn Burns cannot even give her blessing for somebody else to play that character. But even more so than that, Toby Hooper has passed away. That is his character. He created her. So the two people whose blessing you would need to get to have that character in the movie are not here. That is their legacy, and it should not have been touched. It definitely should not have been touched as a cheap cash grab to kind of get in some of that Halloween fandom.
That's where I really feel like the movie became like a bandwagon jumping on because of how popular like Laurie Strode coming back is and Nev Campbell being in Scream and stuff. I feel like they're just like, we really want to almost copy and paste that Laurie Strode thing with Sally. And I just don't think Sally, like, when I see the end of that first movie, I don't think this is how she'd turn out.
It doesn't even fit the character because Sally is basically insane at the end of that movie. Sally is a proto-final girl in that, yeah, she survives, but did she? I mean, she's pretty fucked in the head, and I honestly go with Texas Chainsaw The Next Generation for how I think she turned out. We see her pushed on a stretcher in that movie. But I do think it was a complete disrespect to Toby Hooper and Marilyn Burns. That was not something that should have been done. And it's no disrespect for Alwyn Foyerway, but it's also the way they used the character in this. They really are trying to make her Laurie Strode. Yeah. They've already done that with the Halloween movies, and so they didn't even put any real thought into it. They didn't think, how would Sally respond to this? I think Sally would probably be in a mental institution. Even the 2003 remake, if you watch the deleted scenes, the final girl on that ends up in a mental institution. Yeah. So if they really wanted to be faithful to this franchise and this franchise's story and its characters, I think the mental institution angle would have been better than she's a Texas Ranger.
She's basically Sarah Connor, and I just don't see it.
And she has to figure out in the goddamn movie that Leatherface doesn't know who she is. Bitch, you went up against him. You should know. He doesn't know who the fuck you are. You are an intruder on his territory. Going after Leatherface for revenge is like going after the bear that mauled your family for revenge. I mean, you can, but the bear doesn't know who you are.
Plus, probably didn't recognize her face.
Exactly. I thought that was the dumbest thing. It's like, there are certain parts in this where I'm just like, I really applaud the actor who played Leatherface because I feel like he did his research. But the people who wrote this, I was just like, come on, watch the damn movies. If you're going to get a paycheck from this franchise, you should be watching these movies.
I feel like some things were handled well, but a lot of it was just kind of cash grabbing.
And the worst part about it, one, they directly copied scenes from Halloween 2018. Like, there are scenes that are almost exactly like Laurie Strode's scenes, which were kind of eye-rolly. And then she's barely in the fucking thing. So they did all this disrespect. And she's barely in it. She gets killed off.
Spoilers part. Put on the spoilers. Anyways, I say see it.
Okay, spoilers. Spoilers. So yeah, they kill her off. And it's just like, what was the flipping point of that?
Yeah, she shows up to hunt him down, and that's one of those kills I said a little too over the top. She gets like impaled on the chainsaw and then thrown like 20 feet, and then she's still alive to like try and help out later. I'm like, what? But whatever. The movie seemed pretty grounded up until about that part. Maybe the bus scene was a little bit much, but it still didn't seem too bad.
I feel like what this franchise really needs, I mean, there have been individuals who are passionate about it. My cousin wrote the Leatherface prequel just called Leatherface. I know a lot of people didn't like, but he is passionate about this franchise. But, you know, the studio and stuff wasn't as behind it as they should have been. You know, if they're going to hire all these people to make a movie, you need to support it. Yeah. And what they really deserve is, if instead of copying the plot of Halloween 2018, copy the amount of passion that went into that movie, because everyone involved in Halloween 2018 was 100% there for making a good Halloween movie.
Yeah.
This franchise deserves that same treatment. We need to stop making Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies in fucking Belgium, for starters. Like, what the actual fuck?
Maybe make them in Texas.
Maybe make them in Texas.
I
Show
know it's
Toby
scary
Hooper a
there,
little
but-
respect. He was a Texan boy, and he wanted to show that even somebody in Texas could make a movie. So yeah, show the man some respect. Make your Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie there. 2, instead of trying to copy another franchise that really has nothing to do with this one, they should be looking at the franchise and continuing the story that's at the root here. And they got some of it right. There is definitely social commentary. There's a little bit of satire. But I wish they would have gone further with that, because this had nuggets of something really cool in it. It is fun.
Yeah, it's actually a really fun slasher film, but that's kind of the problem. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as we said earlier, isn't supposed to be a slasher film.
I will forgive that, though, because I like Texas Chainsaw 3D, and that one's just dumb fun. This franchise is so, it's mutated into so many different things. You know, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, very good with the social commentary and stuff, but it is fun. I think you can make one that's fun.
Well, that's where I will forgive, like, some of the over-the-top parts of the movie where they just get really crazy, like, unrealistic. Like, this movie starts off really grounded, so that's kind of why it was a little jolting at the end. But Toby Hooper himself, with part 2, went really unrealistic. Like, I mean, you had Dennis Hopper stabbing Leatherface right through the stomach
Dual
and out the back.
chainsaws! I
And, like,
adore that
Leatherface
movie.
surviving it. And they were, like, somehow this giant underground cave, like, in the amusement park where they still had Franklin's body and it's, like...
I adore that
skeleton.
movie, Dan.
I know, I
Say
do.
what you will.
I do love it, but I'm just saying, Toby Hooper was the first to go crazy, so we can't get mad at other movies in the franchise for going a little crazy. He did it first.
Yeah, I don't mind that they went fun with it, though. Yeah, I don't mind that they did that. I think they did successfully made a fun movie. I just don't like some of the. I mostly just don't like the inclusion of Sally Hardesty. I think that was a misstep, and I think the family should have been involved. That would have made me like it a lot more.
Yeah, I prefer when the story kind of
Definitely-
revolves around more of the family aspect.
Definitely skilled people acting in this one. The cinematography is great. No complaints there. The music's good.
Yeah, the acting's good. Some of the, like, Sally, I just didn't think she was written well, but she was played well. I wish they just wouldn't have had Sally, though. And, you know, some of the other ones that are kind of cringy characters, they're acted well. Like, I don't have any problem with people who are acting them. I think they did fine. Just, I don't think I was supposed to like them.
I feel like they did a little too much. I don't think they needed the girl who was shell-shocked from a school shooting, because it's like, I got that they were doing like a Gen Z versus Boomers thing, but I didn't see where that fell in there.
Just...
I
don't
think
know.
you could have had them just hate guns just because they don't like guns because they're young people and they don't get that there's different cultures.
Yeah,
But
Lila's the only one I kind of liked, though, so I
I
guess
feel
I'm
like
glad she's there.
Lila didn't have a lot of places to go with that, though, because they didn't really explore it that well. And that was honestly, interesting, but they didn't do a whole lot with it.
Yeah. They could have done more with her and everything on that, but...
One thing you mentioned earlier that I would have liked to see, if they had, really watched the franchise and thought clearly about whom they could have brought in here, I would have liked to see Stretch come back.
Yeah.
Stretch is one of my favorite final girls of all time. I adore Stretch from Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. I love that movie so much. Caroline Williams is still alive. She is still a babe.
Yeah.
I'm sure she would love to do this. She's done so many movies. She talks about this franchise all the time. Bringing in Stretch would have been really cool.
I think Stretch would have been a lot better than Sally.
Absolutely.
That's who they should have done that with. They still shouldn't have completely copy-pasted Laurie Strode from Halloween 2018. But
Well, they couldn't have, because Stretch is such a different person. And then
Exactly.
also bringing in the original actress, I think Caroline Williams would have a lot to say about how the character's news. Be like,
exactly.
this is what Stretch would do. This is what Stretch wouldn't do. Stretch would not be a Texas Stranger. You can't do that. Stretch was very investigative. She was a radio disc jockey. I could see her going into like maybe investigative journalism or something, because that's totally her speed. Or even just, being interested in this story still and having like a podcast or something. But she wouldn't have let them ruin her character. And that's why I guess what makes me so angry about it is there was nobody to tell them that they were doing something wrong, because the people who would have are gone.
But this is one of those, like, requels where they just want to ignore all the other, like, sequels. So that's, I guess, probably why they need Stretch. But I just still think she would have been better than Sally.
And I'm never going to complain about Caroline Williams getting work. So I
Pay
wish
that woman. Put her in
I wish
the
I could have
movie.
seen that. I would have loved to see her in a movie with Alice Krieger. So Just a missed opportunity there. Missed opportunity. She was a TV reporter in part 3, Ben.
Yeah.
She's also on Leprechaun 3.
And so I don't know.
I adore her so much. What else do you have to say? What do you want to see happen next in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise?
I want to see Leatherface go to space.
Are you fucking serious?
Houston, we have a problem.
Oh,
I mean, they are actually in Texas where NASA is.
Okay, you kind of got me with that tagline. No joke, that's a great tagline. How would it work?
The family just fucking shows up and hijacks a rocket. Because why not?
It's kind of insane.
But so is like Chop Top, and like if you watch part 2,
I want them in like a Winnebago, like in Spaceballs.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
I think they should be on the run from the law who's hunting them down, and they should show up at NASA, and there's gonna be a launch, you know, and they're like, well, they ain't gonna get us in space. They kill all the astronauts.
I love that tagline, Houston, we've got a problem. That
They end up on a space station. It'd just be great.
What I would like to see, I agree with Ariel. I'd love to see Stretch come back. Just it's such a missed opportunity in this film. I want to see these films brought back to at least America, if not Texas. And I want the family back. Yeah. I love the family in this, and I know a lot of you didn't like my cousin's movie, but I do love that he had Nubbins and he had all these characters and Grandpa and everybody in there. I think the family's fascinating, and I would just love more of them. And I'd love to see more members of the family I haven't met. That is such an untapped resource. This family is massive. And, you know, even in part 2, they couldn't get the hitchhiker back, so they created Chop Top. Like, there is so much room to create even more new characters in this family.
Yeah, and they had Nubbin's corpse anyways. And he got ran over in the first one, so it made sense that he was just a corpse at that point. But I want to see Chop Top back. I would like actually more of a sequel that's kind of more direct of part 2. Like I said, especially if they're going to space, because that's like the craziest one. So just send that family into space, bring back Chop Top, bring back Carolyn Williams. She can even just bring it all back. Send them to space. It'd be funny. I don't know if you're gonna do. I mean, at this point, the ones that work the best for me though, like personally, is the original, probably the remake, and those are very grounded and very realistic, and that's why they're scary. They feel so real. But I don't think we're gonna really be able to do that a third time. So at this point, let's have some fun with it, but like focus on what is fun about Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I feel like you can only really, I mean, that's kind of like lightning in a bottle, and I feel like you can only really do that with the original, because once you continue on from that, you've got to explore characters and stuff more. I think Tobe Hooper made the right move with his Texas Chainsaw Massacre too. I think exploring different tones and stuff is good, and I'm all for a fun Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, long as they stay true to the core values of this franchise, which is a little bit of commentary. And, you know, the Saw is family. The Saw isn't Leatherface. Yeah. The Saw is family.
Exactly. And we're talking about Seth's Leatherface a second ago. And I do really think that worked really good on paper. I just don't know if they pulled it off well. I love the idea of that movie. I just think that the way that they also like took out some of the stuff that they had.
They took out a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah, there was some scenes that are missing. I think
he really wanted to explore how would somebody get to a point where they don't even have their own identity, that they wear a mask to get their identity. And there was a lot in there about like foster homes he had gone to and stuff that really messed him up. Like in one of the foster homes, they make him dress up as a girl, you know? And so over time, you can see how this person is beaten down into where they have no personal identity. And it's really, really fascinating. I think the movie is good, but I think what he had in his script was even better.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I just, let us know what you thought. I say see it, because this is a fun movie. Don't take it too seriously, because I mean, I don't know how his chainsaw works. Like it busts it out of the wall and it just revs right up, and there's some silly shit you gotta like turn your brain off for. But overall, I had a lot of fun watching it.
I recommend streaming it. I think if you enjoy slasher movies, if you want something fun, this is absolutely something you're gonna enjoy.
You don't need to maybe go out and buy a physical copy of it, and I mean, if you already have Netflix, it's right there.
I just watch it on Netflix. I would say stream it. Watch it on Netflix.
I don't even know if there is. I think there is.
Oh.
You don't have to go too hard out of your way to see it, but I say check it out.
I like Confused Reviews comment. The Saw is interstellar.
Yes, exactly. See,
I'm getting on board with this. I'm getting on board. Oh my god! Stretch in a spacesuit.
Can you imagine though? Leatherface like in a spacesuit, but then he's got the mask of someone's face like on top, like some Buzz Aldrin looking face on top of the spacesuit, like on the outside of it.
Wow.
I'd have so much fun.
Seriously, why are you not working in Hollywood? This is amazing.
I should write the script.
You really should.
Okay, that's my next script.
Just call it Texas Chainsaw Massacre in space.
Our dogs are going crazy, so I think it's about time we wrap it up anyways. But we will be back on Gory's channel for a Scream stream.
Yeah, we're gonna rank all 5 screams. We're gonna rank all. Why can't I talk? We are going to rank all 5 Scream movies over on my channel in 1 hour. So if you're still up and you want to talk horror, join me over on Gory B Movie. Just type it in the YouTubes, you'll find it. And Danny will be with us too.
Yeah, 7 o'clock. I'll give you my ranking as well.
That's Pacific time.
Yeah, Pacific time. People are like, it's past 7 right now because it's a different part of the
We
world.
live in the past.
All right, so anyways, cut.